The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carla Brown, and welcome to our webinar. Let us do the work and to learn about our SWK hosting options. I see a few of you have joined. I was going to wait a few more minutes. We have about 3 people. Couple housekeeping things before we get started. You are all on mute, so in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you should be able to hit the question button or chat throughout the session, and I will go through and I'll be watching that, and then we'll go ahead and answer questions at the end. And then shortly after the webinar, you will be prompted to take a quick survey on some follow-up items and to see if we can take things to the next level. So without further ado, I will introduce BJ O'Reilly, who's going to be doing our presentation today. BJ, I'll hand it over to you.
All right. Good afternoon, good morning, depending on what time zone you're in, and thank you for allowing me to bring and talk about our cloud application hosting. I am the Chief Technology Officer for SWK Technologies and for Secure Cloud Services, which is our hosting entity of SilverSun Technologies, which is our parent. And so I'll be taking the presentation today. So if you have any questions, feel free on the bottom of your application for GoToMeeting to go ahead and log those, and we'll definitely catalog them so that way we can get to them at the end of the presentation. I am going to demo our cloud architecture too, so I'm going to do a quick demo. It's probably not going to take more than a few minutes. So when we get to the end of the presentation, I will be showing you actually our accessibility into our hosting environment. So with that said, we have, so Secure Cloud Services is the company. What we title our product is Business Application Cloud Hosting, or BAC for short. So when you hear me reference those 2 different entities, they're actually one and the same. So Secure Cloud is the company or corporate entity, and BAC is just our branding for that. So we just wanted to have some way to easily identify it, and that's why we use Business Application Cloud Hosting. It's just too long, so we shortened it for you. With that said, let's get started. So quick agenda, at least I thought we would move to, quick agenda. So we're going to talk about what cloud computing hosting is. We're going to go through some different perspectives. We're going to go through the properties and characteristics, and we're going to talk about some of the benefits. So how can I move my system from on-premise into the cloud, and what could I benefit from? And then we're going to talk about the service models and the deployment models, because there is a difference there as we go in and through the system. We're definitely going to want to figure out what those deployment models are. So that's our agenda for today. So the big question is, what is cloud computing? So that's the big thing. Everybody has this terminology and this definition of cloud computing. You know, you'll hear some people say it's Salesforce. You'll hear people say it's this. So I definitely want to take you through that, because I think it's a very broad definition. And I look at it and say, hey, you know, what do people say? How are they saying it? And the reason I use the 2 tin cans is because, you know, in the interpretation of that really goes along the way of, as you tell one person what cloud computing is, then they tell it to another person, the interpretation seems to change slightly. So with that, I definitely want to define and let you know what that means. So we have some cloud disclaimers. So 2 big people, Larry Ellison, for most of you, he's the CEO of Oracle, probably one of the largest cloud computing companies in the world. You know, they have their Oracle Cloud, they have NetSuite and some other products. And he redefined cloud computing to include everything that we already do. So to understand what we would do differently other than change the wording of some of our ads. So at the end of the day, you know, it really is the same thing we're doing, just in a different location. So that's why we want to make sure that a lot of people will tell you, hey, you're just moving it from point A to point B. And really in that side of it, that really has a good definition of it. You know, you're having it on premise in your office, we're putting it up in the cloud. And then Rich Stallman said, it's stupidity, it's worse than stupidity. It's a marketing hype campaign. Somebody is saying this is inevitable, and whenever you hear somebody saying that, it's very likely to be a set of business campaigning to make it true. So a lot of people are going out there, they're saying, you know, it's just not the wave, but in the world as we know it, and let's look at one of the largest companies in the world related to cloud computing, and that's Amazon. So, you know, while we think it's hype and we think that it's something that people just keep saying, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, the world as we know it is adopting. They are taking it on. So while these guys might disclaim that, you know, they're some of the biggest proponents of it in that world as we know it. So we're going to talk about cloud definition. So the National Institute of Standards and Technology created a definition for that. So they said cloud computing is a model for enabling convenient on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable computing resources. So servers, storage, applications that can be rapidly provisioned and released with minimal management effort or service provider interaction. This cloud model promotes availability and is composed of 5 essential characteristics: service models and deployment models. So the world of cloud computing has gotten to this word where we use terms like hosting. Okay, well, what is that? So one of the things that should happen is that as your business grows, or it will sometimes shrink, we should be able to provision appropriately very rapidly to grow with you or reduce with you. So, you know, a lot of people think it's like, well, my business is going to grow, it's going to get bigger. That's fantastic. You know, at what point does that happen? So, you know, in today's world, if you're going to go out and buy technology for on-premise, you know, you're going to have to think about that 2 to 3 years down the road, and that may or may not happen. So you're buying large today, hoping that you'll use large tomorrow. With cloud computing, we should be able to say, let's just give you what you need today, and tomorrow we'll give you more. So we want to be able to do that. That's one of the things that you have to have, this ability to have it on demand. So if your business grows rapidly in 30 days, we increase it. If you need 20 users today, we give you 20. If you need 10 tomorrow, we give you 10 tomorrow. So that's definitely part of that whole definition. Another one is Wikipedia. They like to describe cloud computing as internet-based computing whereby shared resource, software, and information are provided to computers and other devices on demand. And they like to call it like the electricity grid. And I like to think of it the same way. So, you know, as you're paying month to month, you can increase and decrease as your business needs. So, you know, you may look at it from that standpoint and saying same thing as, you know, we had an office in Phoenix, and in the summer, the Phoenix, you know, electricity bill was so much higher because of heat than it was in the winter, right? So, but we only paid when we needed it. And so it's a dynamically scalable and often virtualized resource. So, you know, where it exists in the world and where it is on the internet, it doesn't matter to a cloud computing user. It just matters that I can get to it and it's easily accessible and it's readily available. So let's talk about on those cloud definitions. So again, we're looking at this, you know, we're delivering these hosted services over the internet. I kind of like to summarize it because, you know, when you look at this definition, you go through flow charts and diagrams and everything else. Really what we're doing is we're delivering you these hosted services over the internet. We're using the internet to put it into your office, to put it into your home, wherever you need to have. And we are in a connected world, so the vast majority of the world has accessibility. I was riding on Amtrak. You know, I have internet while I'm on Amtrak. You know, so the world of computing and cloud connection I should be able to work anywhere I'm connected to the internet. So it's definitely a positive. So I'm going to go again, you know, as we go through these definitions, I definitely don't want to go, but one of the important parts of this slide is when a cloud is made available on a pay-as-you-go manner to the public, the service being sold is utility computing. So I want to really define that we're not a software as a service. So we're not providing you the software in the sense that we're an application delivery hoster. So you have an application such as Sage 100, you bring it to us, we take your application, put it in our cloud infrastructure, and deliver it to you. So we're really that utility computing. You know, you need it when you need it, and if you decide, you know, 6 months from now you don't need it, you can pull it right back down to wherever you need it from. In the world of SaaS, you're not. You're using somebody else's software, and when you're done using it, you no longer have access to it. And that's definitely not what we are from a cloud definition. We're definitely this utility computing environment. So this is from Boya. He is a big Indian proponent of cloud, and he calls it a cloud is a type of parallel and distributed system consisting of a collection of interconnected virtualized computers. I'll jump down. It's based on service level agreements and negotiations between the service provider and the consumer. And from the perspective there is that we're delivering this environment to you in specifically catered to your application. You know, we are giving you a service level agreement and providing that service level agreement to you between us, between the hosting service and you, the consumer and or customer. So it's a big difference. So, and we're not typically out selling in the retail space. So we're not selling to everybody who needs to host something. We're specifically selling it to somebody who has that need to be provisioned and to run their own dynamic application. So are you even more confused? So there's a lot of definitions, right? So, so let's talk about the properties and characteristics. So we talked about this idea of utility computing. We also will hear phrases like service-oriented architecture and service-level agreements. We like to say SLA for a shortened version of that. We'll talk about things like scalability and elasticity, availability and reliability, manageability and interoperability, accessibility and portability, performance and optimization, right? We'll talk about hardware virtualization, parallelized and distributed computing, and then we'll talk about how we deliver this through a web service. So these are all parts of that properties and characteristics. So again, you're going, okay, wow, you know, there's a lot of things here, but again, we want to educate you because you want to have an understanding of, you know, that purpose of what cloud computing really is. Because a lot of people will ask me, they'll go, okay, BJ, what are we getting? What am I buying from you besides somewhere to land my Sage 100? And I'll say, hey, these are all things. We're scalable. We have elasticity. We have high availability, high reliability, right? We've got all these terminologies. And I definitely want to step through those things. So when we talk about scalability and elasticity, we have this ability to dynamically provision. And you're in a shared multi-tenant design. So, you know, you're used to having an on-premise server. That on-premise server serves a function just for your organization. In the world of cloud computing, we have a server, and that server is segmented into multiple servers in order to serve multiple tenants. You know, so you're getting the benefit of sharing that. So when you need more resources and somebody needs less, you're getting that benefit of being able to share those resources. And we do that through some other components of technology, and we'll talk about that as well. So that's part of multi-tenant. You're still in your own completely virtualized and your own secure resource. You're not sharing that physical application server that you're being delivered on with anybody else. You're just sharing the architecture and hardware only. So there's not a sharing of those ideas. And we'll talk about availability, reliability, and fault tolerance, performance optimization, accessibility and portability, and of course, manageability and interoperability. And we're going to hit each one of these as well. So you're saying, don't tell me the details, I don't really care. Oh my gosh. It's a lot of information, but it really is important to understand some of the details, I think, especially if you're a CFO or a controller or you're thinking of proposing this to a CEO, then you definitely want to understand what some of those central ideas are. So some of those central ideas are, you know, I don't care how it works, only that it works. I only care about what I can get done and how fast. I don't care about how you do it. Instead, I'm only concerned about the quality of service. And I only need what I need. I only need what I need now. Later doesn't matter. I only want to pay for what I need now, and can I have more later if I need it? Those are all great questions, but they really depend on the fact that those central ideas are ideas that cloud computing can support those, but it's really about the service. So the underlying service of what we deliver and how we deliver it really matters. So, yes, we can get it to you and we can set it up, but knowing some of the understandings of how that service is delivered really makes a better choice for you. So we talk about secure cloud services. So we have a single provisioning model. So your monthly costs all inclusive of the needs of the user. There's no per hour pricing. So, if you've experienced Amazon or Microsoft Azure, both of which, AWS and Microsoft Azure, they charge you based on your consumptive model. So they're truly what I call utilitarian in the utility market, in that they charge you based on what you consume by the hour. We don't. In order to come up with a fixed cost, we took all of those costs associated with the software, licensing, hardware, and labor, and we put that into a per user model that makes it very simple for you on a per month basis. And as you grow in users, your price goes down. As you reduce in users, your price goes up. So we keep that somewhat consistent, but we're not changing anything, and you're not incurring these additional costs. We like to maximize the efficient use of resources and to minimize those costs. So talked about that shared architecture. So, you're used to buying a server and that server does one thing for you. We buy our servers and those servers do 100 different things. And we maximize that through the efficiency of both software and hardware architecture. So that allows us to minimize those costs. So the more so that we can put on there. So if you're a user that's a low demand, low usage user, you can exist in an environment with much more customers. If you're a high demand user, we can put you somewhere where you have much more resources available to you. So we minimize that associated cost by maximizing the use of those resources. And we make ongoing support with an easy to use and secure support system. So we're definitely wanting to do that. And what's nice is Secure Cloud and the world of SWK work mutually together. We're trying to make sure that we combine those resources available to us. So, our technicians and engineers have a lot of Sage 100 experience in the sense that they worked with the application to deliver it. They're not necessarily Sage 100 application experts like your consultants are, but they understand the underlying architecture and what it takes to run it. So we'll never ask you to explain how it works, Sage 100. So what is the service? So service is the connection to our cloud. How do I get there? Service is the endpoint of a connection from where I came. So what most people don't realize too in our environment is that we're only half the equation in the delivery of the experience. So if you're sitting in Starbucks and there's 27,000 other people sitting in Starbucks with you, you're most likely going to have a slow internet connection. And that's going to potentially cause your service to have some slower connectivity. So we're part of that equation. So, it's not where you're going, sometimes it's where you're coming from that can be part of that equation. In the world today, it's a connected world, it's getting better and better, but I like to believe that Secure Cloud uses some really good technology to work in very thin footprints. And we have customers that are on satellite connections, which are not usually the fastest that still can function and run. So the functionalities of the service is always well defined. It's self-contained. It works 24/7. It's available to me anytime I need. And the service is the function of all that I need to get to my stuff. That's all that matters. And we like to say service is the user. So when we provide service, the user gets that service and they get what they need. Our hopes are to talk to you the least amount as possible from a hosting perspective. That means if we are not hearing from you, we're doing our job, hopefully. So you'll hear this thing called QoS, or quality of service. And that's a set of technologies that are managing your experience. We're trying to make sure from that perspective that your experience is well managed and that their quality of service is always there. So, whether there's 1,000 of you accessing our data center at one time or there's 20, the experience should always be the same. And we really work hard to do that. It's become a broad term. So, there's customer evaluations, technological evaluations, security, people. So we have to take all of that into account for for quality of service. You know, so we're constantly calling and asking the customer, how's your service? Is it connecting the way you want? Is the performance there? Is the speed there? You know, we're looking at our technology on a constant basis. We're constantly rolling out new technology, new pieces in order to do that, all without disturbing your experience. Remember, our goal is to give you a 24/7, you know, experience that doesn't get interrupted, or at least has the least amount of interruptions possible. So we do this through customer care evaluations. We do it through technological evaluations. And that leads us into that service level agreement. And this is very important. So our service level agreement is our contract between you, the customer, and us, the service provider. So it talks about uptime guarantees, system throughput, response time for support, problem management detail. What if we don't perform? What if we have an outage? And they do occur. Sometimes they happen. You know, there has been, and knock on wood for us, our uptime has been 99.9%. But, you know, an outage can occur. It does happen. So, you know, if we do that, then we need to, you know, do something for you. And then we go through SAS 16 or security audits on an annual, and we do certain audits on a every 2 years that we're making sure that our security meets the modern structure of what's going on the internet at one time. And I'm telling you, that is the biggest thing. So we have had numerous clients that have ransomware that have moved into our environment because they've been hacked or they've had somebody get into the system. And so, you know, making sure that you're secure is very important for us. So let's talk about scalability and elasticity. So it's the world, we call it, give me the world without limitation. But I really definitely want to talk about what that means. So scalability is the ability for the system to, in other words, handle growing amounts of work. So we do that through our ability to provision. So it's not uncommon for a client to have 10 users and move to 15. Well, running 10 users and running 15 is a completely different environment. So we have to scale to do that. So we make those adjustments for you. That sometimes might require a dynamic reboot of your system to do it, and with a downtime of maybe 2 to 3 minutes. You know, very short window. We do them after hours. You would probably be asleep in most cases, but we're able to do that. So the next morning you come in and you're ready to support 15 users. So it's not a problem. Elasticity is our ability to look at that infrastructure and look at how we're going to expand it or how we're going to grow it, how it will adapt. So, and we do these through things like dynamic provisioning, multi-tenant design. You know, we're not hosting, you know, Great Plains Dynamics because we're not Great Plains Dynamics experts. We're hosting products like Sage 100 because we're Sage 100 experts. So our design is really based around that. So what is dynamic provisioning? So a simplified way to explain it is just a complex network server environment in which we're able to deploy in a very quick and orderly fashion. Their definition definitely is much more complicated by, you know, we've got to do security, we've got to make sure that there's administrative functionality. So, and it makes time lost. We want to be able to have you and migrate you into our cloud environment very quickly. We also need to be able to change or up your ability to have more very rapidly. So we do that based on capacity and demand. So if we can't do that, then you're going to lose revenue and you're going to have user issues. So we need to look at that and say, well, with dynamic provisioning, we can add users very rapidly. So we can add a user by the time you call us to the time that it's deployed within minutes as required. So, and look at that utilization. In our case, we might say, hey, we add that user, but you know, there's not a need to have any kind of provisioning change in your system. It doesn't look like the utilization is affecting it, but you just added 10 more users, we're definitely going to have to make some system utilization changes. So, we talk about availability and reliability. Data never lost, machine never fail. That's very important. So this is a part, I think, that is the part that we as end users sometimes forget. So is this available and reliability? It's the #1 selling point for having a cloud computed environment. Okay, so we need to have a statistical ability to differentiate ourselves on the fact that we have 99.9% availability, that we're up at any one time and very rarely down. You know, so in the case of when you look at that, when you say you're up 99.9, might say 0.00%, you're not down more than at least 30 hours per year. It's a very small window. So, you know, and a lot of that for us is sometimes just updates or changes that we have to make. Again, that reliability should be done too. You know, if you're asleep at 2 a.m. in the morning, we're updating you at 2 a.m. So that availability makes a big difference. You definitely want to have it. So we have some people hosting with us that have 24/7 operations. So we have to have that uptime ability for them on 24/7. That doesn't mean that we don't have predetermined what we call maintenance times that will notify you in advance, where we say we have to provide a small routine maintenance with a planned outage time. That doesn't affect your availability because those are things that have to be done in our environment. For most of you that have Sage 100, it has to run in a Windows environment. For those of you familiar with Windows, they like to update it on quite a regular basis. Some updates can be applied without reboots, others require a reboot. So we like to schedule those, but we'll schedule them at 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. So for most of our customers, that's okay. Even a 24/7 operation on a periodic basis once a month, scheduling a 5-minute downtime for them is okay, as long as they know it's going to happen. So you also want reliability. So our underlying architecture, I will tell you right now, Secure Cloud owns 100% of its architecture. We don't rent it from Amazon. We don't rent from Azure. We do 100% of our own architecture. Why is that? Part of it's reliability. The other part of it is that we know what Sage 100 needs to run, and it is an incredibly input-output, disk-intensive application, and we have developed our architecture to run that application effectively, fast, quick, and efficiently. So, you know, we can't rely on the architecture of other vendors, including Amazon and Azure, to provide a reliability level for that architecture to deliver the same performance that you would have with an on-premise experience. So we developed our own architecture. All of our equipment is Dell. It's all serviced by guaranteed response to our data centers, and that response and reliability from them has been exceptional, but we have redundancy built in. So in order to have reliability, you have to have fault tolerance and system resilience, and we have that. So we hope we have no single point of failure in our architecture. So if something went out, a drive, if a power supply went out, if a processor went out, you most likely will never ever know it. So, and you shouldn't know it, and you shouldn't care. It should not affect you. So fault tolerance. So that allows us to have continued operation. So we like to be able to update our underlying architecture at any one time. We sometimes will update it during the day. Again, you'll never know it. You'll never have it affect you. So all of that's part of that fault tolerance world. So not having any one single point of failure. Now, I'd like to think that we all do well on this, that everybody in the world does well. Amazon had an outage 8 months ago on their East Coast operations. I know it affected some of our customers, not Secure Cloud customers. That outage was a result of a router fault tolerance not affecting both routers. So, you know, we like to think we're perfect on that side, but I will tell you that's why we nobody says they're 100%, or we'll ever tell you 100%. So it's how we function during that fault tolerant situation. One of our data centers, and I'm, you know, not proud to say this, but it happened. So we had less than a 0.002% that one of our data centers could ever be hit by lightning. So guess what happened last year? They got hit by lightning. took out the generator control panels, the backup power supply. That would have been okay, except that same lightning now suddenly struck a power relay and took out the power to the data center, and so therefore the generation systems couldn't go into way. We had an outage in our primary data center. Our secondary data centers took over, but our primary data center was out for almost 2 hours. So it does happen. You like to think that 0.002 is not, can't happen, but it has happened. And they have since rectified that, knowing that that shouldn't have happened with backups and additional redundancy. So it happened on a Sunday night at 10 o'clock at night. We called those clients that were affected in a short period of time that we were, going to redundancy, and most of them were asleep. So we don't find all but our 24/7 people as affected. And I like to talk about it. We're very transparent at Secure Cloud. So talk about system resiliency. So if the power is lost, can your system recover? So all of our data centers have generator backup power for a 5-day cycle. They could go without that for 5 days. So all of your data is backed up and placed into multiple data locations at any one time, all secure, highly secure facilities. So, our ability to have resilience is there. So even if we had a full both data centers completely have a total system failure, we have the ability to put you somewhere else, and that makes a difference. Part of that resilience is in our world of backup. So unlike my competitors, we back up every 60 minutes during the production day. So from 5 a.m. Eastern till 8 p.m. Pacific, we back up every hour in our data center. So while you're working, if you had an issue go on, we're always within an hour. So we don't just back up once a night like some of my competitors. We back up every hour during the highest level of production without affecting you. So we can roll you back to the nearest hour if we had to. So, so it's, your loss there it needs to be as low as possible. So system security is definitely a big one. We talk about system security all the time. We're constantly fighting that. We have a cybersecurity person constantly working with cybersecurity. Our data center is always under attack. But we have issued some really great things to make our data system secure. So one thing we do is we don't allow outside access past the continental United States without first going through a security audit. So we have clients that are in China, and their connections have to go through a security audit. They have to then be set up for a tunnel. And we do that so that we have no single point of entry into the data center outside the U.S. So in the U.S., if you're sitting in Starbucks, you can get in. If you go to the Starbucks in Shanghai, you're not getting in. So we do that to provide a much more secure environment within our facility. Hence why we call it Secure Cloud. You just can't stroll the entire world and think you can access. You can get permission, and we have accessibility for you by doing some things on our side. So we're not saying you can't do it. We just make sure that we know you're doing it. So I kind of liken it to the fact that the credit card companies, when you traveled out of the country, always wanted you to let them know for fraud purposes. And we're the same way. If you're going to travel out of the country, let us know. And we have the ability to make your connection secure and allow you accessibility while you're on. So we do data protection, we do identity management, so we do have that, and we do application security. That's very important. Stage 100 doesn't exactly have a huge amount of security to it, so we definitely provide some layers for that as well. And we also provide some privacy layers. So we talk about this. I want full control. So we have to provide some manageability for you, because what you're getting from Secure Cloud is 100% managed by us. We don't manage your application, your Stage 100 application, but we manage the environment and all of the accessibility to that environment 100%. And that's included in your per monthly user fee. So there's no add-on, there's no additional cost to that. It's all there. So we're rolling up the manageability, the the software licensing, all of those components as well. So we also like the word interoperability. So today's world, I should be able to access from my MacBook, from my Android, from my iPad, from my Chromebook, from my Android device, from my Apple iOS device, right? So we have to have that interoperability. So we allow you that ability to access from virtually any device into our data center. So it makes it nice. So we'll talk about performance and optimization too. So, you know, what is cloud computing in mind? So is it clear or cloudy? So we talk about cloud computing is a new paradigm shift of computing, right? So we talked about that. We talked about high quality of properties for the characteristics of cloud computing, like manageability, elasticity, and reliability. And you know, then there's the service models and deployment models. What's really nice is that our deployment model is really simplistic in the sense that when we're deploying Sage 100, it deploys the same for everybody. There's slight differences depending on what you have on premise that you need to access your Sage system, but for the most part, everybody deploys in a very similar fashion. So we don't have the multitude of deployment services that most companies would have to have related to cloud computing, because we're not a set of generic computing. We are primarily doing ERP business application hosting. These are some quick references. You will get a copy of this presentation. And with that said, I'm going to just take you through a quick demo of how we access our cloud environment and how it functions and responds. All right, so I'm switching over to my device. So we use a small footprint. We use a product called Parallels. Once it's installed and it's a very small, it basically allows us ability to go into our environment. And so your connection here would simply be your name. Now, what I'm demonstrating is my ability to connect and see all of it. And we can also manage multiple different connection types. So we have other clients in our data center that have that ability to connect. So, but I can auto connect. So I can just connect up, and then I'm just seeing my connectivity here. So this is just my connection into this environment. So I'm seeing only what I'm allowed to see. So the nice thing about that is nobody else can see your stuff. Nobody can get to it. What is nice is our SWK consultants do have accessibility for you so they can get in. So unlike my competitors who want to charge for that accessibility, we don't charge you, the customer, for that accessibility. So we can allow them based on your requirements, accessibility into your environment when you want them to have accessibility. So that's it. We can deliver via an application experience. We can deliver via a desktop experience. For the most part, most of our customers like the desktop experience just because they're getting the ability to interact just like they would interact on their computer. But we do offer you the flavor that might work. So I simply click this on. It's already authenticated me, so I don't have a bunch of logging in to do. So when I first connect up to that, we have the ability to store your username, encrypted password in the application, so I don't have to constantly be entering that in. And I'm going to get presented a desktop just like I would anybody else. Since I am a BJ with superpowers, I'm going to be also prompted with additional things, and that is I'm able to see the server manager here, which we will quickly close down and get rid of. So my application desktop delivers the application that I need. That has the ability to deliver things like, can I deliver file sharing and file services. So again, you're used to seeing Sage 100, and I'm going to log into it. So hopefully you're seeing the responsiveness of this Sage 100 system. So I'm also over wireless connection. I'm doing my presentation over the wireless, so should be able to really quickly just go into common things like miscellaneous item maintenance. So my experience is exactly identical to how I want that to be. I can redo that. And by the way, I have multiple monitors, so it's opening it up to multiple monitors. So we do support that. So if you wanted to have multiple monitors and work entirely in our environment, you could as well. So that accessibility really is easy. It's an experience that's pretty much the same for you, but I have the ability to really quickly identify what I need to do. I also have the ability to, to quickly change things as I need it, but we do have certain things that we lock down for the user's experience. So we don't, we're making that user experience quick and easy, but there might be things that, I want to have accessibility to. So, I can do things like, sorry, it's like I said, I've got two monitors here, so I've got it expanding. So I can do things like if I want to share between my two environments, I can. So the system can map automatically. You can see where it's mapping, drives between the hosted environment and my local machine. So I can move files in between my machine. I can copy and paste simply by using a copy and paste function right into the environment, all of which we're scanning. So any files coming in and out of our system are getting scanned for viruses, for ransomware, for any of those things that might potentially involve the environment. We're doing all that as well. And I can run this on any device. So I happen to be running this on my Microsoft Surface notebook, but I could very easily just as well run this on my iOS device as well. So again, we want that key to be able to quickly access the environment and get to wherever we need to go. So, and as you can see, obviously, finding out that with multi-monitor, it's able to do that. So nothing too spectacular to demo. We always show that but we do actually have the ability to create shortcuts on the desktop. So you don't necessarily need to go this way. You can very easily, if I want to, I've turned my desktop icons on, but I very easily can have that displayed on here. So if I wanted to quickly add in from this, I could just say, go ahead and create that shortcut on my desktop, and it's done here. So I don't even have to go into the client. So I just want to go ahead and click on this Sage 100 icon and just quickly click it on. It's going to take me through the security and all of the passes and just access it onto the system. I don't have to go into Parallels to do that. So this is just our thin client delivery system. Highly secure, using encrypted technology between us and the data center. And it also does a lot of our front-end featuring to provide that gateway functionality as well. So that's a little bit about the environment. So a quick demo of that environment. So oops. So some of the features in our Sage 100 Cloud Computing are, we supply you all the Microsoft Windows licensing. What's really nice is, again, month to month, you can go up and go down as you need it. So, if you were somebody to go out currently buy licenses for on-premise, you'd have to buy 20 licenses. And if you go up to 25, you got to buy 5 more. But if you go down, you don't get a refund or a rebate. So we can move those up and down on a 30-day notice. We're also doing all your Microsoft remote desktop access licenses, your Parallels thin client licenses, your Excel is included. We give you plenty of drive space to handle your system. So we have clients that are coming over that, they've had Sage 100 for, 10 years, and they might have, 20 gigs of data. So we're fine with that. We can handle it. So we definitely give you what you need. We're not making you cut it back if you're not ready to cut it back. We're doing your process power configured to your user count, so we balance that out. We're monitoring that. So we may give you, X amount of processors for your user count and find out that's not enough. So we definitely, from that perspective, want to handle that. The other part of it that we're doing is your memory is the same way. We increase performance as your needs grow. We have 24/7 monitoring, 24/7 backup. We talked about those hourly backups, redundancy, And we also include virus and ransomware protection in there for you. And the big thing is we have phone support. So we will support you. You need a password change, a user left, we need to redo a user. All of that's included. We don't do anything outside the scope of that. We never bill you for an hourly billing. So this is a big one everybody wants. So pricing. So we, with Sage 100, we come, Sage 100 comes in standard and advanced, and then it also has a premium SQL version. So this is our pricing. So a lot of our team kept coming back and saying, hey, we've got these 1 and 2 user systems. So our minimum pricing for a 1 to 2 user system is $180 a month. So that'll go up to 2 users. But once you go past the 2 user mark, then at 3 to 5, it's 85, and then it just goes down from there as we go through the user count. If you're over 30 users, we custom engineer you, and then we'll look at that pricing. So, and then SQL is $10. Basically, it equates on the 3 to 5 users, basically $10 more. That's to include the SQL licensing that we have to pay based on that user count. So the difference for you is we also, if you buy this, have the premium version, we provide you SQL as part of our licensing structure. So that's the big difference you would have in our menu of what we supply is that SQL, you get SQL from us, so you don't have to bring it. So there's no bringing anything other than your Sage 100 to our environment. Okay, so with that said, I'm done. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take questions, but with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Carla.
Thank you. That was great. Again, we'll be sending out this information post this webinar. Does anyone have any questions? I want to go ahead and type it into the chat window. I see Melanie raised her hand. Let me see if I can unmute you. I think I unmuted you. Are you there?
Yeah. Hi. This is
Hi.
Melanie. Hi, Carla. So I had a question about the user pricing. So is that based on concurrent users or individuals? So if we have 25 users, but really right now we have we're on our current plan, we have 10 licenses. So we rarely reach 10 at one time. So how is the pricing based?
So the pricing is named users, so it is a big difference between how Sage is done as a concurrent model and how we're done. Part of that is because that's the Microsoft way of thinking. They don't do a concurrency model. So we have to do it based on the name licenses. So if you have 10, we're going to give you 10 licenses. So I always like to tell people if you're not using it, let us know because we can, it's easy. Like I said, we're here to reduce it, but it is a named licensing. Same thing with SQL. It's named, but we can go up and down. So that makes it nice for us on that side.
Okay, and that you can go, and again, going up and down, that's month to month?
Month
to month. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we report license usage on a month-to-month basis to Microsoft. So as long as the next month, we just go, hey, we just report less licenses. And so we pass that on to you. It's why I don't do annual agreements in that sense, even though our agreements run in a 1-year mark for pricing purposes. It allows us month to month to do those changes to go up and down. So it does make it nice. So if you're not, if you buy 15 and you're not using 15, don't pay for 15. So.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Perfect. Anyone else? Can raise your hand. Oh, there's somebody. Hold on one second. I'm unmuting you, Brad. Are you there? Brad, did you have a question? Oh, someone might have accidentally put, okay. All right, anyone else? Again, there will be a survey right after this, and if there are any follow-up questions when you get your copy, we're happy to answer any questions. And is there a question that, oh, here it is, it's in the chat. Here's a question for you, BJ. Does everyone needing the Sage client have to install and run Parallels application to connect?
Yes.
I believe the answer is yes. Yep.
Our security, that it provides the security level and load balancing for the connectivity, yes. You know, we elected not to use RDP on our remote desktop services alone because it didn't supply the user experience across multiple platforms. So Parallels is just what we picked, and you know, we tried Citrix and everything else, and it just is, it's easy, quick, and it just flawlessly works for most users. So.
All right. Anyone else? All right. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending, and have a nice afternoon. Thanks, BJ.
Thank you. All right.